Hello everyone. Today I'm going to walk you through a different sort of process, and this is the one where I actually document and save my holiday Christmas cards, my photo cards, and perhaps handmade cards as well. What I do, or what I have there, is all of my Christmas photo cards that I've received and a couple of pieces of cardstock, and then there's the 2 handmade cards that I've received. What I do is I take a card and I cut apart all of the photos on it until I get to this. So I have a photo there of a couple of my friends, some shots of places they were during that year, and some ephemera from the card itself. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put those landscape shots aside because that's not what I want to be scrapbooking here. I want to be scrapbooking the pictures of my friends. So what I do is I take my cards and my ephemera and I just collage these all together. So I've come ahead a little bit in the process and I have all my photo cards cut apart here. What I did is I pulled together the ephemera, which is what that is, the 2 homemade cards, and then the large cards, or the large photos, some medium photos, and some small photos. And I'm sorry, part of this is probably going to be off screen just because it's really hard to get these positioned properly as I'm doing this because it's a 2-page layout. But I'm collaging. I'm starting with the biggest cards here, or the biggest photos here, and then I'm going to fill in around all of those photos. And I've sped this process up fairly fast so that it's not completely painful for you to watch. What I do for the cardstock is I don't use a ton of cardstock on my layouts anymore. I do sometimes use it as a border on the back of the paper, but I really use it more for cards than anything. And I have a fairly decent sized stash of it, especially green, because I was using green a lot, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And a scrapbook store near me went out of business and I bought a bunch of green in all different shades. That's back when I was using cardstock as the basis instead of the pattern paper that I use now, or the base of my layouts. So anyway, I have all this green cardstock and I tend to use that. Now it all gets covered up in the end, but if you can see the side of it, at least it's green. But really you could use purple or any other color because you don't see those colors when you're all done. So now I've gotten through all of the small photos and or all the large photos, sorry, and the medium photos. And now I'm starting to work with all the small photos to fill in gaps. And I really try to avoid overlapping the photos. That certainly is one style that you could do, and I do it, but I try to really get them so that they're actually abutting each other. And, that's just a personal thing for me. Because I think if I was going to overlap the photos, I should be overlapping most of them versus overlapping just 1 or 2 of them. And I'll show you how I'm going to fill all those gaps in because I'm getting very close to having the photos arranged in sort of their final arrangement of how I'm going to do it. And you notice as I'm doing this, I'm trying to not create quite as many straight lines, either horizontally or vertically is the best way I can describe that. And what I do sometimes is, I don't need to see the whole photos. That photo there is a photo of one of my friend's daughters on Abbey Road. So I tuck things behind. And now I have everything in about the place that I want it to be. So what I do is I start usually on one corner of my layout with the biggest photo that I have. And that's what I've done here. And that just gives me a place to start from. I just make sure that, they're properly centered on the piece of paper. That's on the cardstock paper anyway. So, and I'm sorry that the bottom of this is cut off. I think I have this cardstock a little bit closer to me than I normally do because it's, you know, I want to make sure my edges are all lining up, and it's hard to see that unless I'm almost completely over the top of it, is the best way to describe why that's happening. But you kind of get the idea of what I'm doing here. Now, one of the things that is a little bit different about this process than when I've done it in most other years is I cut what I told you was ephemera off of the card. So things like where you might have a block where you can get a clean block that says Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays or the year, in this case 2015. I normally have that, but in this particular case I didn't. So I'm going to have to figure out another way to get the 2015 on this paper here, or on these photos here. And like I said, I'm really sorry you can't see this because I feel bad about that. And I'm tucking here just to get things up. You know, I find like that, you know, the top of that photo is not the important piece. It's the people in the bottom part. The other thing you'll notice is when I did my, see that gap there right next to my hand right now? I made sure that it was only like a rectangle or a square, because sometimes when you do these, if I had dropped the photo of the two people down a little bit and not put that photo of the three people there, I would have ended up having like a, I don't know, like an upside down L-shaped gap there, and I don't want that. I want it to be a clean square or rectangle, and you'll see why that is. Well, I could fill it the way I fill it anyway, but I just think it looks better when it's just one instead of the two sort of shapes together. That again is my own personal thing. However you do this is however you do this. What I'm using there is I'm using my Cricut spatula, and that just helps me get some of the edges up where I need to do that. I try to glue the big photos and the medium-sized photos more towards the center of them, and that way I can tuck the smaller photos under, just like I'm doing here. I'm tucking them under, I'm tucking that photo under other edges. Okay, getting that down. It's really kind of, it's really kind of therapeutic to do this, as I'm stuck on my speech there. Anyway, it takes a while, most definitely. This process, entire process from start to finish, took me almost 2 hours. It was 1 hour and 50 minutes. But I find it very therapeutic because, you know, you're just cutting things apart and then kind of making them fit. And what I did here is I made sure I got all the photos on there, but some of the edges, less important things were off. So that's what I was cutting off. Now, what I'm showing you is I didn't make you watch the whole process of the second page. You get the idea. They're both done. All the photos are glued down, and I have all my ephemera there, but it's all too big this year. And other years I've been able to use it, but this year it was too big. I didn't have any big spaces, so I'm not going to use that. So what I did is I pulled out my box of Christmas goodies, and I pulled out all my paper scraps from my December daily and Christmas scrapbooking this year, and I don't throw those away until I'm all done with this process, because I know that I will be able to use these scraps. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to use these scraps to fill in the different spots. However, because I couldn't use any ephemera to say 2015, I want to get 2015 on here somewhere. So I'm taking a really blank dark spot in this photo card, or in this photo now, and I'm gluing on some Dear Lizzie chipboard letters that say 2015, and that's the sparkling alphabet. It's fairly old, so I'm guessing it's not available anymore. Then I'm going through these papers. Now, I'm personally not going to want to use all of them. A lot of times I try to use only one pattern, but in the case of this year and in other years, that doesn't always work because I don't have enough of it left. So I'm going to have to use more than one pattern, but that's a decision I also personally make. That's just a personal thing for me. I like it that way. But if you like a lot of different patterns, you could use lots of different patterns. For me, I like the patterns to break the layout up, but I really want to see the photos. So too many patterns for me is too much, which that's not my usual style of scrapbooking. As you well know, I like layers of pattern paper. So a lot of times I'll use a minimum of 3 different papers on a layout, but not on these. So I've chosen that green L Studio, and I don't know where these scraps are from anymore because they truly are scraps, but I used 2 different L Studio Christmas collections. I used Good Cheer from 2014 and Jolly, which was the 2015 collection. So it's from one of those 2 collections. I think that polka dot is from Good Cheer, but don't quote me on that. Please don't quote me on anything I ever say. It's only as good as my memory in this particular case. So what I want to do is, if I've used a pattern, I want to get it in, if I'm using multiples, I want to get it in more than one place. And I am realizing as I'm doing this that I'm not going to have enough of that green. So I'm going to make sure that I get the green in a couple of spots here on this page, and then also that I get that green to cross across the other page so it looks like there's consistency and cohesiveness to the layout. See, and as I'm doing this, this is the spot where I realize, oh, I do not have enough of that polka dot, and I'm going to need to use it over on the other page. So that's what I'm doing right there. And again, all that does is it just gives you consistency to your layout. One of the things I have to say is I'm just talking through this and you're watching my process there. I'm using my tweezers to get things down, but I love these pages every year. I've been doing this about 6 or 7 years, I think, and it's really cool. Like the kids in that photo that was just above my hand there with that family of 4, they were young. One of them is in college now when I first started doing this, so it's really cool to see how the kids grow. So I've now gone on to another color of paper, another sheet of paper, and I'm going to use this red again that's from L Studio. And what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to get some consistency across the layout and some color pops, I guess, too. What I did there is I've just grabbed a couple of little things. That's a label from L Studio. It says Tradition. I think it's cool, the photo card Tradition there. And I glued it down to the photo, but I'm also going to staple it too so that it goes in there. And I have that ampersand. I want to bring the glitter alphabet over to the other side of the paper, so I'm just going to do that ampersand up on the paper on the other side, and I'm just about done with the layout here. So it's fun sharing with this process with you. Like I said, it's very different than the normal process video that I'll do, but I think it's really a cool tradition to do for me every year. And I display the photo cards in my home during the Christmas season so that you can actually see all the pictures. So it's fun that I also have these on scrapbook pages as well. What I'm doing there is I've grabbed some enamel dots again from my Christmas stash, and they look like little peppermint candies. They're from Pebbles, and they're called candy cane dots. Those were from 2014, so probably can't get those anymore, but I know American Crafts has done some different dots as well too, so you might be able to get those. All right. And I'm finding edges here. And I'm trying to glue those dots down to a kind of a join in my paper there to give you an idea of what I'm looking at. They're on corners and that kind of thing. And I think one of them hides where I didn't quite get the paper in right. Anyway, I'm just about done. I hope you've enjoyed this different process for me today. Hope you are well, and I'll be back with another layout soon. Bye!